It's the ultimate in working remotely. A sheriff says he's been doing his job protecting Colorado from a beach in Florida for 5 months. RTD was going to take our questions yesterday, but that got delayed like a train to the plane, and just like the A-line, it's only resulted in more baggage. Senator Gardner's big plan to fix a flaw with legal marijuana didn't last 5 seconds in the Senate today. And one fish, two fish. DIA found the overdue fish, the one that missed its flight. Wait, why can you take a fishbowl on a plane? We'll suss out the answer next. Life's a beach for Park County Sheriff Fred Wegener. He announced he was retiring, but then he kept his job, along with his taxpayer-funded salary, and he just headed off for Florida anyway. That was 5 months ago. Our Noel Brennan broke the story about Colorado's far-flung sheriff, and tonight Noel is tackling your questions about why this is allowed.
The same day we asked Park County commissioners about Sheriff Fred Wegener's absence, the sheriff was on Facebook asking a Florida fishing group about bass spawning. Makes sense when you see all those catches of the day. In August, the sheriff stepped down, then withdrew his resignation. He kept his job, salary, and parking spot when he's actually in town to use it. "I'm on vacation," the sheriff told us. "I came down to Florida in August on vacation. As you can imagine, I have quite a bit. I am back and forth, handling the day-to-day issues by email."
The living situation violates the spirit of the law, if not the letter of the law, and it may in fact violate the state constitution. The law does not presuppose that the head of a law enforcement office be located close to 2,000 miles away.
County commissioners don't agree with our legal analyst, Scott Robinson. They told us Wegener still rents a place in Park County and is still registered to vote in Colorado. Checks enough boxes to be sheriff, they say.
Perhaps having a rental property in Park County is enough to satisfy the letter of the law, but it doesn't sound like the citizens of Park County are getting what they're paying for, which is a sheriff on duty basically 24/7.
Hard to be on duty night and day in Colorado when you're catching bass in Florida.
And if you were thinking that Park County commissioners are upset about this, you're absolutely right. They are ticked off that we found out about this and started asking questions. When they held a public meeting on the topic, they refused to allow our camera inside to show you, the public, their discussion as public officials. Jeremy Hahola from our investigative team explains why that should matter to everyone who pays taxes.
While there's an ongoing unsolved murder investigation, the head law enforcement officer in Park County has been fishing in Florida for the past several months. Just because this Colorado sheriff can remain sheriff from Florida while being paid by the public is legal, is this good government? When we went to ask Park County commissioners that question during a public meeting last week in a public building, the county commissioners and their lawyer did not allow our news crew to record this with our camera. County Commissioner Mike Brazel said our camera is considered a disruption. Their lawyer told us cameras encourage people to grandstand. There was only one other citizen in the room at the time. Commissioner Dick Elsner seemed more upset citizens went to the news. While one elected official in Park County has the power to fish nearly 2,000 miles away while on the job, another considers our news camera disruptive to government business, while another doesn't like citizens contacting the news. But it is our business to show Park County taxpayers what their government is up to, not for us, but for you who pay their salaries. Right now, Park County business looks quite fishy.
What happens when people stop being polite and start getting real? You know that as the real world. A-Line edition. We might as well just reboot the MTV series with a house full of hotheads from RTD and its partner on the troubled train to the plane, Denver Transit Partners, because they are involved in reality TV style drama. They're suing each other, but they have to work together to keep federal regulators from shutting down current and future train lines. Our Marshall Zellinger spoke to one of the cast members, the head of RTD.
This A-Line train is not having GPS problems, at least as far as we can tell. But as we reported on Next yesterday, RTD admitted to federal regulators that the tall buildings near Union Station and even the canopy over the train stop are interfering with GPS, thus causing problems with the positive train control.
I intend not to get into too much detail today.
True to his word, RTD General Manager Dave Genova took questions today with limited specifics, like did RTD foresee problems between development near Union Station and the electronics needed to run the train as designed?
Anywhere along the way, did RTD say, man, if that building's there, that's going to ruin line of sight for something that we need for this positive train control to work the way it's supposed to be designed?
Not to my knowledge.
Genova will travel to Washington, D.C. on Thursday to tell federal regulators in person how RTD and Denver Transit Partners plan to address concerns with how long the gates stay down at street crossings, which are preventing the start of quiet zones, and the approval to start passenger service on the G line.
I'll just let you know right up front. I don't know the date of the opening of the G line. It's priority number one around here, and I don't know the date of when we're going to get the quiet zones.
There is one big thing Genova did know. In September, an average of 24,000 passengers each day use the A line, so he announced RTD will be expanding train service to and from DIA.
RTD will be doubling the capacity on the Ybor Colorado A line beginning in January of 2019.
So instead of 2-car trains that the feds are threatening to shut down, there'll be 4-car trains that the feds are threatening to shut down.
Genova promised more details and specific answers after meeting with federal regulators. Now, the big elephant in the room, at least to me, RTD and Denver Transit Partners together today for the same cause, even though they're suing each other. So this was the first time I had a chance to ask Denver Transit Partners in person about that lawsuit. You're suing RTD and seeking $80 million. What makes up that $80 million?
Okay. To the scope of today's this is a commercial matter between the two entities at the moment that we're pursuing there, and that's not within the scope of what we brought you here today to talk about.
Oh, they didn't bring you there to ask that, Marshall. You shouldn't have asked it.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
One other positive. If and when the G line starts, it will start with quiet zones. There should be no passenger service on the G line without quiet zones, so it's either a positive, yay, or if they never get quiet zones, you're never getting the G line.
I wonder if they would have another press conference where they could bring you back and allow you to ask the questions that you want. That would be cool. All right. Thank you, Marshall. So, Senator Cory Gardner's much-touted plan to open up banking to marijuana businesses in Colorado, it landed with a bit of a splat on the Senate floor today. Gardner's fellow Republicans wouldn't even put the thing up for a vote. Gardner's team told me today that they did not know their effort was going to be blocked by their own allies until it just happened on the floor.
Senator Gardner's proposal to give the cannabis industry access to banks lasted about 3 seconds.
Is there objection?
1, 2, 3.
Reserving the right to object.
Observe the irony of a pro-marijuana bill being killed by a guy named Grassley.
Criminal justice is not a vehicle through which we create reform for banks to create more business.
And with that, Gardner's amendment was dead on the floor. Still got to make a speech, though. He brought a visual aid.
Look at the green on this map. Over 95% of the population in this country live in a state that have made legalization happen.
South Dakota and Nebraska are getting a contact high at this point.
Almost every state. Let's go to the list of the states.
All right. Do you remember the state name song from elementary school? Sing along with the senator if you do.
Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida.
Gardner's GOP leadership position might seem cush, but he didn't have the pull around this joint to solve a chronic problem.
On the state level, half a dozen legislators were accused of sexual harassment this past session as the Me Too movement gained steam. And quietly, one by one, nearly all of them have been sent packing by their colleagues or by primary voters or by general election voters or by their own hand, resignation. Our Anusha Roy takes a closer look.
Republican Senator Randy Baumgardner started his week with an announcement. He's retiring. He said it's been an honor to serve for the last 10 years, but made no mention that a third-party investigation found more likely than not he grabbed and slapped a legislative aide's buttocks in 2016.
My reaction was relief.
There was a time when even fellow elected officials didn't think coming forward would make big changes.
I had no idea where it was going to go.
Democratic Senator-elect Faith Winters says time proved her wrong. She was one of 5 women who filed complaints against former Representative Steve Lebsock, the only person expelled.
Everyone, including young women and aides and interns and lobbyists, should feel comfortable coming here and working with us.
I don't know what their total reasoning for their resignations are.
But regardless, some think it's a sign the allegations weren't just brushed aside.
Folks that actually bring complaints forward need to be listened to, but there needs to be due process.
Republican Senator Beth Martinez-Humenick, who was voted out of office, said she just wanted the questionable behavior to stop and had no idea that Democratic Senator Daniel Kagan was going to resign. She said he used the women's restroom multiple times. He denies it. But when Kagan announced his resignation, he didn't mention the accusation, but that it was time to pass the torch to new leadership.
I would hope that this isn't going to be something that overshadows the coming session and in the years to come, because there's so much important work that has to be done here.
The other accused lawmakers either lost a bid for re-election, decided not to run for office, or are term limited.
So there was definitely an acknowledgement after all of this that the Capitol needed a culture change. So they did a bipartisan committee to help set up an HR person because they didn't have one at the Capitol before this. And Kyle, they were also working on clarifying some of their rules and regulations because of confusion on if you could stay anonymous or not.
No idea if any other legislators are going to be accused anew, but the topic of conversation continues for that exact reason.
Yep.
All right, Anusha, thank you. Future Denverites might find an affordable place to live at the spot where Elitch Gardens currently calls home. Denver City Council approved the River Mile redevelopment project. This is going to be a massive, years-long project for the spot along the Platte that's currently populated by parking lots and Elitches. A spokesperson for the developer told us today 15% of the housing there is supposed to be quote-unquote affordable. Details, though, they're likely years away.
A small fish lost in the big pond of DIA.
My biggest fear was that they just flushed it down the toilet or something. I'm so happy that didn't happen.
They found the fish, the one that left you with unanswered questions about airport security. We'll dive into those too. And the imperfect combination of 2 of your pet peeves. Next.
Triceps popping.
Fitness is everything.
I know, my biceps.
To Angela Marquez. She squeezes in a workout every day and always makes time for a gym pic.
Post at PR Fitness Studio,
which is posted to Instagram in no time.
You'll see a lot of workout pictures here.
She isn't showing off.
This was also my cancer anniversary.
She's sharing survival.
I also look at it as I'm alive, because that was 11 years ago that day.
The day Angela learned she had cervical cancer. Doctors removed lymph nodes in her pelvis to save her life.
I survived cancer. I beat cancer, and now I have this.
This is her new battle.
Yes, it is in my left leg.
The left leg is much bigger than the right.
One Olga Belskaya fights too.
It's an ongoing battle.
They both suffer from lymphedema.
It feels heavy.
A debilitating condition.
Oh my goodness.
That lasts a lifetime.
Lymphedema is the abnormal accumulation of protein in the tissues, so the area underneath the skin and above our muscles.
Angela and Olga are treated by Vicki Ralph, a woman who is dedicated to treatment and awareness.
I do about 45 minutes of stretching of the skin.
An occupational therapist at UC Health.
This is short stretch compression bandaging.
Some people are born with lymphedema, but for many, like Olga, the condition is triggered after lymph nodes are surgically removed to treat cancer.
You have kind of, if you will, a mechanical failure of that section of the body.
This chronic condition chips away at her sense of normalcy.
It's full of liquid and your shoes doesn't fit, your clothes doesn't fit, and you just don't want to deal with it anymore.
That's why Angela's Instagram feed,
the Instagram page, is Funky Lymphedema,
has a deeper purpose.
That's my leg.
It informs, it inspires.
We call it the mini incline.
Those who search for answers.
I want to change the image of the pictures maybe that they see when they do Google lymphedema and feel that it's gloom and doom and negative.
It's completely fine to hear something you don't agree with and say, yeah, I still think the exact same thing. Test your own beliefs. We also want Next to be a reflection of you watching at home.
I'm guessing that you did not sleep well either last night, with Cassie the fish missing at DIA. Well, rest easy tonight, my friend. The fish has been found. DIA tweeted a photo today of the pink betta fish. This is the fish we told you about last night, with the attached note to his owner, Lanice Paulus. Turns out DIA staff found the fish in an elevator at the airport. Paulus was trying to take the fish home to San Diego. She's done this before. Then she ran into an airline-specific policy. Southwest does not allow live fish on board. So she leaves the fish with a stranger who's going to take the fish, but then apparently just left the fish at the airport. Thank goodness for DIA staff who took it to the Lost and Found.
Some nice lady named Stacy has been keeping it in her office for me, so I was very thankful for her to do that for me. So my friend is on her way to pick it up right now.
That's a relief, but it doesn't answer our next question. Came in from Mark and Dan and Jamie from Littleton. They all saw the fish story and wondered how TSA allows a fishbowl with more than 3 ounces of liquid through security when we mortals aren't allowed more than 3 ounces.
Just put your shampoo in a fishbowl, maybe they'll let you have it. Here is the exception. It is for live fish. The fish must be swimming in water in a clear, spill-proof glass or plastic container. Here's the best part. TSA is going to eyeball your fish to make sure that it is observed as alive and swimming. That's how they tell that the liquid is not explosive, and therefore you will be allowed through the checkpoint with your fish. But do not head over to the Southwest counter, because TSA wanted to also remind folks, airline by airline, they may have specific prohibitions against jumping on board with a fishbowl in your lap.
And now you know, right? I love that story. Well, some changes heading our way tomorrow. We're going to be tracking some fairly strong winds moving in overnight. Winds as high as 60, maybe 70 miles per hour up in the mountains and foothills. We'll be tracking some blowing dust on the eastern plains, blowing snow going up in the mountains, plus some winter weather advisories out there. All the wet weather still positioned across the Pacific Northwest. A little light snowfall just beginning to move in along the western slope, but this storm system is really all about the winds. Tonight they'll get going here in the metro. We're down to 32. But winds as high as 10 to 20 miles per hour. You'll feel that. You'll hear that overnight. 20 to 30 degree temps across the eastern plains, with teens and 20s tonight up in the mountains. But high wind warning, that kicks in at 8 a.m. tomorrow, lasts till 5. It puts in a full day's work. I-76, I-25, I-80, tricky out there, as we're going to be tracking these strong gusty winds, limiting visibility quite a bit. Plus the snowfall moving into the mountains. Not a ton of snow with this storm, but blowing and drifting snow certainly could lower the visibility out there, and it could be messy. Right now, about 2 to 6 inches. Overall, some higher amounts further out to the north and west, with about 4 to 8 going for the Park and Elkhead Mountains. 51 on tap tomorrow, 50s across the plains with 20s and 30s up in the mountains will warm things up. How about 61 on Friday? A cool, dry weekend, and right now it looks pretty nice for Christmas.
I guess I feel somewhat badly for the person who's lost their goat.
He's in a better place now, because this goat was born to run wild in Colorado with a whole different herd.
But they all seem like they're happy and having a good time.
I need some wildlife type expert to tell me what in Colorado was going on here. Next.
I really didn't feel safe anymore at home.
Sometimes I wouldn't eat. It was like this hunger pain in your stomach.
It was just so lonely. I just felt like I was not important to anyone.
I never thought homelessness could happen to someone like me.
I remember coming here and I felt comfort, I felt safe.
Graduating as valedictorian, getting a job, keeping the job, it's just a good feeling.
Because I've completely turned my life around and made it into what I've always wanted it to be. There's people out there who can help. There's people out there who care, and things can get better.
If you call 1-800-RUNAWAY, you will get connected to the help you need.
Like lightning on the Great Plains, a spark ignites the imagination of a young 4-H member named Ryan. As a teenager, Ryan explores the wonders of nature. As a young man, he experiments, discovering new possibilities. As a scientist, Ryan uses a new technology to detect an invisible tumor in a little girl's eye. The 4-H commitment of fostering 1 million new scientists and engineers is being embraced by companies and universities around the country. With their help, 4-H is growing the next generation of great thinkers like Ryan. 4-H, 1 million new scientists, 1 million new ideas.
Hey, Denver, what happens when the most daring team in daytime takes on trending stories live? Anything and everything.
I am pro-sex workers. You're crazy. I said it.
You are totally off base here. I can't believe I'm saying this. I do agree with you. Denver, join the live conversation.
With the DBL Nation.
Daily Blast Live, the talk of what's trending. Weekdays at 1 on 9 News.
Teddy, nighty, bong, bong, bong.
Join the party 5 nights a week on Channel 20.
Tonight, a lesson in acceptance from a herd of elk that has taken in a goat in Loveland. Goats just like chilling out in the herd, doing elk stuff with the elk, and it's drawing a lot of attention.
We live out here because we enjoy the wildlife.
And it is a neighborhood of 2-acre lots, and so we end up with a lot of animals.
One of our frequent visitors are herds of elk.
A lot of nature, yes, a lot of nature. Sometimes a little too much nature.
Well, the latest has been a goat.
It's been quite an entertainment for us to find the elk with the goat.
Well, just recently, a goat has started hanging around with a small herd of young bulls.
For the last, a week and a half probably, there has been a little black goat wandering around with the elk like he's just an elk, and he's just convinced that he's an elk.
And the goat seems to genuinely enjoy them, and vice versa.
So he comes wandering into our yard and then keeps just wandering all over the place, and we thought initially it was a fluke, but he has been with them consistently for quite a while.
They treat him just like he's part of the family. They look out for his interests, and there's stories about elk actually going after a coyote who tried to get at the goat.
I would love to know why he's hanging out, but no, I haven't heard any theories.
He might not know he's a goat, or he may think they're awful big goats.
I guess I feel somewhat badly for the person who's lost their goat, but they all seem like they're happy and having a good time, so.
Looks like it could be a good children's story. Somebody could write a children's book about it.
Game of elk, elk, goat through the lens of our photojournalist Corky Scholl. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife reviewed that video, and they said this is weird. Elk typically do not interact with other animals like what you see there, so they've actually passed along the case for investigation. If our friend Steve Steger's watching tonight, oh, he is gonna hate the You've Crossed a Line segment. And you people are fired up in feedback. Hope you didn't bottle it up while I was away. That's next.
It's the time of year for reflection, tradition, and giving back.
But for many, it's also a time of stress, anxiety, depression, or addiction.
It's important to know you're not alone.
If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, alcohol, addiction, or eating disorders, call or text the number on your screen anytime to talk to a real person. Visit the community section on 9news.com or the 9 News app for resources.
Let's take care of ourselves and each other.
I'm Ryan Harrer, sharing Colorado's stories. 9 News everywhere.
Our Broncos.
I'm a Broncos fan because we got the best team in the NFL.
My whole life I've been a Broncos fan.
Denver till we die. We bring the thunder. Bronco fans are the best.
It's probably the most exciting thing that you could ever feel.
They're the best team in the league, obviously. We got the best fans. The whole stadium shakes and everybody's jumping around and rooting and hollering. There's nothing like this crowd.
Broncos fans will always stay loyal.
We're looking forward to another Super Bowl win. This is Bronco country. We bleed orange and blue.
The whole idea of Next is that we want you to hear things and say, right on, that's what I'm thinking. And we also want you to hear things that make you squirm a little bit, make you uncomfortable, perspectives that you might not have considered, but are still thoughtful. And it's okay if you hear things that you don't like, because you're smart enough to decide whether or not you agree with it. Let's consider different perspectives. Let's give you good information so that you can make smart choices. You should expect to see and hear things that you have not seen and heard anywhere else.
Get to know the Johnsons 5 nights a week.
How about I give you $100?
No, 200, and you agree not to have any more children.
Okay, that's a decision I have. No.
A traditional family.
I'm here to help.
You're not Mom.
Where's Mom?
And an unconventional comedy.
I think you look good for your age, Dad.
40's not bad, right?
You're only 40? Good Lord, you've lived a hard life.
Weekdays starting at 5 p.m. on Channel 20.
I identify as Panamanian and African American, but at the end of the day, I'm just human.
I identify as the Latina Asian.
I identify as Puerto Rican and Mexican.
I identify as a Chicana.
I identify as Mexican American.
I identify as Colombian American.
I identify myself as Honduran.
I identify as Mexican American.
And I identify as Salvadorian.
I identify as Colombian Palestinian.
I identify as Chicana.
At the end of the day. But at the end of the day.
I am just human.
Tonight, a Naughty Shoppers edition of our favorite game, You've Crossed a Line. This is Steve Stager's nightmare. The carts piled up, unreturned in a lot, and they're sitting in an area that's needed to access one of the handicapped parking spaces at a Target in our area. Pamela Puderboss shared this with us, told us as a quote-unquote disabled gal, she wants to send a friendly reminder that this is not where the carts go. Send your photos to next@9news.com or use the hashtag HateNext. Man, people are fired up about this Park County Sheriff situation. James Smith saying, disappointing that the sheriff disrespects those citizens who gave him a 20-year career in law enforcement. Yes, in fact, the sheriff has been there for 2 decades. Joe Cervone, stunning report. Thank you, Noel Brennan. Noel is the man who broke that story. Scott, though, is disappointed in me. He says, you call that a beard? I never called it a beard. He says, I've seen fuller beards on babies. And speaking of, Shirley wonders what my daughter thinks of the beard. She likes it, Shirley. Viewer writes, my mom, Jackie, wants to know what's in your pocket. She's almost 85, so a shout out would be amazing. It's a pocket square.